now. All right, so we are, well, I was going to say live, but we are recording with Jarvie, myself, and Aggroed. So question number one, I think, is how do you like to have yourself referred to?
Usually Aggroed or Aggie.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the way to go.
And it's Aggroed, not Aggred, right?
Yeah, it's the verb is to aggro, and it's past tense, so it's aggroed.
Okay, because I know
Is this an actual verb or a verb you made?
No, it's a verb. I mean, it's a gamer term. To aggro something actually comes out of World of Warcraft.
Yeah.
And so
well, it's well before that in D&D. But.
Maybe, yeah. I guess that was my first interaction with the word, to aggro something.
Yeah,
I did not know this.
Yeah,
so
aggression. Yeah,
there's a monster that's just sort of wandering around, and if you get within a certain radius, you have aggroed it, so it stops being like a inanimate object, and it starts attacking you typically. So it is a state of normally being calm and non-engaging, and then when you have messed with it, you have aggroed it, and it comes out of that calm state and engages you.
Wow, you learn something new every day.
Glad I could help provide that, Jarvie.
Yeah. Got to play more games, Jarvie.
So you guys played World of Warcraft? Did you, Neil?
I did not play World of Warcraft. I played Warcraft way back in the day.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, if I'm being honest, I'm still playing World of Warcraft.
Yeah.
The Classic came out, and my old guild, which hasn't played in like 15 years, they started contacting each other and being like, let's go play again.
So tell me, why is it like,
just why?
Did it go away for years?
I think that they went from like a pretty hardcore player model to a, hey, let's make it friendly for everybody kind of model. And when they did that, like, all the hardcore gamers were like, this is now dumb. You did it for status, you did it for EPing, you did it for, you were able to go differentiate yourself through your character, and then when everybody could complete the same dungeons. Like before it was, hey, it's not fair, we can't do all the dungeons. Some of them are too hard for us. And that to me was the point. Like, look at how badass I am. I can do this thing that you can't. And then when like everybody and their grandma were able to go complete those dungeons, like it kind of lost the allure.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if I'm being totally frank, one of my main reasons for coming back to World of Warcraft is their crafting system. And as I look to not Untamed, but the future of this game, I really want there to be like a quite robust and complex crafting system. And
what word are you saying? Drafting?
Crafting. So we're gonna do a land expansion, and on that land expansion, you're gonna be able to put mines to go extract raw resources. You're gonna be able to build buildings that can take those raw resources and then combine them in a manner where the items and spells will largely be player crafted. So how we get there and how complicated that is, like the very first iteration of that I was envisioning was, all right, mine stuff and directly pay for it. But I don't think that's nearly as cool as mine some stuff, turn it into a whole bunch of component parts, some of which you have to farm or gather through fighting and whatnot. Combine those maybe with some places that you can only get them from like boss drops or something, and use all of that collectively to get us to like a pretty sophisticated mining and crafting portion of the game.
Now, before we get too much further, what I want to describe is, I feel like this is important, that when Aggroed is talking with us here, it's kind of like a lot of the thoughts coming out. These aren't like definites. This is how the game is going to go, so no one takes this as nothing.
It's not financial advice.
It's not financial advice, and it's no guarantees. There's no guaranteed timelines.
Yeah.
We have things that we're working on. We have internal timelines. We even published some of the timelines publicly. One example would be, I think we're going to end up having a bare bones back-end functional mobile app, maybe at the end of October or early November. It's not something that would go public for everybody, but it would be something that maybe by the end of November or sometime in December, we could actually start rolling out. Those aren't firm deadlines. I mean, it's like, I always go back to development is very much like research. It's not like manufacturing. In manufacturing, you have a machine, like this machine can print 50 million cardboard boxes a day. If it runs for 2 days, we'll get you about 100 million. Like, development isn't like that at all. It's like, I ran this code and the code didn't work, so now I have to debug it for the next 2 days. And other times it's I ran this code, it worked the first time, and everything is smooth. Like, it's just really hard to make any kind of accurate prediction because it's very hard to scope this stuff correctly.
And then you have to test, like if you come up with new characters or new features, then you have to test it in gameplay and make sure that it's all working and didn't break the whole meta.
I mean, we've done pretty good at not breaking the meta yet, but we've had to do a handful of corrections to the cards. And the audience has actually been pretty good about it. They mock us a little bit with a few memes of, like the Spectre of Death visiting some of these cards. That was a pretty funny one that stuck with me. But for the most part, people have gotten it. I mean, like, it's a lot worse. Our basic philosophy is if the game is unplayable, then you lose all the value. So we do everything we can. We would like, and actually I'm working on a Kickstarter. In the Kickstarter, we're announcing the rollout of Untamed, and in that we're also talking about we reserve the right to alter these cards. So
as far as stats and abilities and things.
Yeah, I mean, if a card is strong, we don't want to stop having strong cards. And if a card is weak, we don't want to stop having weak cards. I mean, not every single card is meant to be playable in every single situation and be like a perfect team player fit for your deck. And that's by design. But if something is totally broken one way or the other, then we might especially if it's broken on the winning side, we are much more likely to investigate that. We're going to keep throwing in a couple rusty androids that nobody wants to use. Although part of the fun of designing this crafting system is trying to think of ways to make it more valuable. Like, yeah, it's not a great card in the fighting, but maybe by using it or defeating it, it drops something that is valuable for the crafting system. And so I'm hoping that can help balance out some of the economics of, this card's not great to fight with, but man, it can farm granite better than anything else in the game can. And then maybe that starts changing how people value these cards.
We were talking about in the last show the animated corpse and how it's not being used a lot and it has a low price that does fulfill something. I mean, it allows someone to have a card, to play with a card that doesn't cost a lot. So
yeah, I mean, I think it's not a terrible card. It's actually one of the better tanks in Little League. So when you have monocaps, it has a lot of health and it has void. So if you're stuck there, I don't know, I go to the life team and I try to figure out all right, White Splinter, what are you going to provide me for a Little League tank? And I generally come up with a pikeman and I'm like, he's not all that good. But some of these other ones have much stronger tanks. What we have very intentionally tried to do is make sure that no one card is ever overwhelmingly good in any broad sense. We want it to have strengths and weaknesses and have that play out at different times. And again, I think crafting is going to expand that to this card is a terrible fighter, but it's a great farmer, or it helps you get some items that you otherwise would have a difficult time crafting yourself. That's the kind of thinking that my brain's at for this crafting system.
Yeah. So if someone were to have a very long-term speculation, a long horizon, they might say, well, I should buy up those cheap cards now in the hope that they will be useful whenever this crafting.
I keep thinking about that of we're going to do items and spells, and some of these items and spells can go grant additional abilities to monsters. So, like, I don't know what stops the like the animated corpse from being a really well-liked card, but like, imagine that you could go toss shield on it for 1 more mana. All right, so now it's a 5 mana card. It's got shield and void and now it's actually like got you basically covered. Or maybe the death team or the Mortis team really has some issues at higher level play, mostly because it doesn't have a lot of healing. What if there's a card that grants healing, so that now you can put tank heal on a different card in the game? That could totally change this meta up. And so all those cards that you would look at and be like, wow, these are crap, I'm never going to use them. It's way too early for me to tell you, like, all right, this card that's undervalued is going to be like the biggest winner. But yeah, I highly suspect that some of these cards that people just gloss over now are going to be, will find a much more valuable spot in the meta, either through the crafting mechanism or through like using items and spells to buff them in ways that turn mediocre cards into much stronger cards for very little mana. I don't know that that's going to happen, but that is something that I envision either intentionally happening or being a fun coincidence.
Who's on the team right now how does that go on figuring out what cards can do what? Like, is that kind of like you guys both play back and forth, or
so
Matt's baby he loves work? That's like his joy to work on.
That's a lot of Matt's baby. Matt and I did a lot of work initially to try to figure out a scheme to, like, basically a character creation point system. Like, a lot of this stuff involves spreadsheet after spreadsheet of math, and going into like the heart of it is pretty boring. But ultimately, what we did is we said, okay, at common at this level, you'll get this many points. At rare at this level, you'll get this many points. Epic and legendary at this level, you get so many points to work with. And then we split those points between abilities and their core stats. And then we weight the different abilities and sometimes even weight them differently per splinter. And that forms sort of like the baseline, but we aren't religious about sticking to it. If we're like, this card is slightly stronger or slightly weaker, we don't care. Some of that too is determined by the art. So for Untamed, Carrie Allen and Chris Roberts, that are really like the lore masters of the game, went through, put in a lot of the names, put in a lot of the descriptions, and then even suggested abilities that would go along with the cards based off of the art and the creature and sort of the lore around it. And then we kind of like are taking that for Untamed as the base and then wrapping other stats and point systems around it. So, we've been pretty good. One example would be like the air elemental from the life team doesn't have flying. That's probably a dumb oversight, but not the end of the world.
Yeah. Yeah, there are a couple things like that. And I, for one, as a player, appreciate rational and consistent lore to monster and to summon.
Right. We want it all internally consistent. It's
right.
A weird fantasy world, and lots of things can happen, so we can explain off anything. But it's a lot better if it just, like, that thing looks spiky, it has thorns. Like that.
Yeah. That makes sense. So that brings us to the Untamed. So we know that beta is in the process of dwindling. We've got about 78,000.
Rapidly dwindling. Man, I know I've said this for a while, but it's like I think we are in hyper FOMO mode, and we did 10,000 packs yesterday.
Yep.
Like, these packs are not long for the world. For the alpha, we did 56,000 packs in 3 days. So with beta, we have a lot more people. We're in a much worse market, but somewhere in here, like, this stuff is just going to evaporate.
Right. And Jarvie and I were talking in our last segment about people speculating on the tokenized packs on the alphas and the betas and so forth. So betas will sell out at some point. Maybe it's tomorrow, maybe it's in 3 weeks, whatever it is. And at least the way it's looking right now, there's going to be a period where there are no packs available besides the orbs. And then there's going to be a promotion of some sort, either Kickstarter or Fundition or whatever. And then to Kickstarter. And then so then there's going to be Untamed.
Yep.
So we know there was a lore post a week or two ago about the archaeologer who kind of unleashes all of this onto the world. And is that sort of and in the story he basically goes nuts, right? So is that kind of going to be the theme of Untamed?
That's still somewhat developing, so I don't want to go nail down that one aspect. And that's probably a better question for Chris and Carrie, because they really are writing the there's not like a screenplay to this. I don't know what the right term is, but sort of the flow of events, and we're once we've finished lore, and I have a physical book. I sent it off to Carrie and Chris, but like I have a 200-page physical book that's going to be part of the Kickstarter, and it has all of the background. And so now we can create these consistent stories so that like if we put something into the game, we can cross-check it. Like, does that make any sense? Will the players buy this? But like, are they going to revolt and be like, no, that creature doesn't exist here or something? Like, we've built this world because one of the next things that we're going to start working on is asynchronous tournaments should be soonish, and with that comes the ability to start doing things like boss fights. And so I want to see these boss fights like come into existence, and there should be some story around it. It's not just here's a big monster with lots of hit points. It's like, why are you defeating it? What are the minions? Like, what are the background art that need to be here? Like, what are there flying creatures? Are there not? Is it water based? Where are these things? Like, but now that we've got a lot of the background and we know we've put together the setting. Like if you read general stories or screenplays, they have a setting. We put together 200 pages of setting. Now we're able to go forward and say, okay, in this setting, create these stories. And that's the point in the lore where we're at now of like the history is now finally behind us. It's like it's printed. We got it. And that should go live in October. Hopefully.
Is that book done then?
Yeah, it's done. Well, it's done other than we're gonna leave some space in the Kickstarter for people to get into it. So they'll either be like an appendix or something. But if you want to be built into Steam Monsters lore or Splinterlands lore, we're going to allow that, and that's coming. So other than like last minute player editions, the book is done.
Okay, so that leads me to this Kickstarter. So in the previous Kickstarter, there were different levels for different cards and packs and what have you. So the book is obviously going to be something special, right? So are there any other kind of unique things coming in the Kickstarter that you're able to share at this point?
Where did I put it? I don't know where it is in my office right now. So that's not going to work. But yeah, there'll be stickers. So it's kind of it's got two main parts to it. The first part is that we're doing a physical Kickstarter. So for the first time ever, you're really going to be able to like purchase and hold, wear, see tangible physical goods from the Splinterlands. And then the second thing that we're doing is that it's going to be it's releasing Untamed into the world. So so there's stickers, there's a T-shirt, there's the book, and then there's physically printed decks of cards. So you can actually buy and hold these cards in your hand. Then the rest of that campaign is really about releasing Untamed to everybody.
Okay.
So you're gonna have to wait for the Kickstarter to be done for Untamed to actually be playable.
Yeah, I mean, we're not. There will be a period of at least a month where we will be pre-selling packs, but they'll be tokenized and not usable in game. So, if you want to go, man, do I want to spoil this surprise or not? Yeah, I guess. Yeah, Jarvie says, yeah, of course you want this. All right, I'm going to do it. So here's.
I don't want you to,
no,
I don't want you to get in trouble, but go for it.
this is about the time that I want. Yeah, this is about the time that I want to be doing this. We cooked up something that I think is really awesome for the Untamed series. Namely, there's going to be a lot of airdrops that are part of it. And the earlier that you are involved in getting these packs, the more airdrops that you're going to get. So I'm not going to like break down every single piece of this, but like we did the legendary summoners, right? And so you got an airdrop, and we looked at that. We're like, wow, people really responded to that, and people in crypto love airdrops. Like part of the reason why we're going to go with mining and crafting is because people in crypto like to mine. That's just like something that you do. So it makes a lot of sense for our first real expansion to involve mining. Well, people also really like airdrops. So we're going to go have some airdrops be a part of this. So I'm not going to go into too much detail, but the short of it is the earlier you buy packs, the more frequently you'll be able to get airdrops out of this.
Huh.
That is quite a motivation to get
Right?
in as early as possible.
Right?
For the newbies,
I'm gonna FOMO myself on it.
So for the newbies in the group, when alphas came out, there was no gold foil. It was just the regular cards, and then we got an airdrop, a quasi airdrop, where retroactively, based on the packs that you had bought, you had a certain probability of those cards turning to gold, and then they did, and then from there on, it was you might get a gold or you might get a regular, and then with the legendary summoners, it was if I remember right, it was based on the number of packs that you had bought for betas.
Yep.
And you got a certain probability of getting a legendary summoner drop.
So basically, every pack had a chance of having a 6 card in it.
Yeah.
And so we distributed the legendary summoners that way.
Yeah. So if that's the case for the Untamed, and that's at the start of things, that's going to be the intention. Then that is an incentive to get your hands on some packs.
And do it early. I mean, part of what's fun about the end of this season is like, FOMO, everything's running out and it's crazy. But there's a good long lull, which is very much inspired by the bear market. But we want packs to maybe if we could get a slightly better distribution over the course of the we keep targeting about a year. We want an edition to last for roughly a year. Is it always going to be that way? No, but we said, all right, let's go do 300,000. That should last us a while. It lasted us far less time than we thought. And then we said, all right, we really need this to last a year, because we don't just want like an infinite supply of cards out there. Like we only have so many players at any given time. So we don't want to just we don't want to slam them, but we also, on the flip side, we don't want to be like having to go do up a whole nother deck of 60 cards every month. Like that's not sustainable either. So we're targeting roughly a year, and so the first one is going to had 300,000. The beta has 900,000, and we're going to go up to 1.5 million for the Untamed packs. Okay. So it's growth, but we're not trying to. We also want to induce some scarcity, but we also want to allow for new players to come in. Like it's a lot of things that we're trying to balance.
Yeah. Is the pricing going to be consistent at $2?
Yeah, it's going to stay at $2 for 5 cards in a pack.
Okay, and so a lot of the comments that we've gotten when we were soliciting questions in the group is about either power creep in the new things, or how playable is Untamed going to be versus alphas and betas, and will old cards become obsoleted?
I hope that they don't become obsoleted. The general way that we are building this is that remember how I talked, there's a point system and you have so much for a common at level at 8, and then level 9 you get a couple more points, and level 10 you get a couple more. And that scoring system stayed consistent from alpha to beta, and it will be the same scoring system into Untamed.
Okay.
So you typically have, there's a couple different approaches, and this is the one that we are purposefully choosing. You can either make the cards that are coming out much stronger that will kill the earlier ones. You can make them much weaker, which drastically overpowers the older ones, or you can use them at the same level and have what the term Matt used was complementary. So like you're not going to be able to get the same cards and the same splinters with the same sets of abilities, but these cards aren't going to be massively more overpowered or underpowered, at least intentionally. You know, we're introducing some new abilities, and when you do abilities, we give them a point cost. And so we might get that wrong because we don't know how powerful it is or something, but at least the intention is to go keep the card powers consistent. That we might end up changing like how you have to level cards. Maybe it takes more, maybe not. That's still a little bit under discussion. We do have it like another month before these things are released, so that the kind of final call on that hasn't been made. But yeah, that's what we're going through it, and we want the old cards to be playable. We want them to be valuable. We want them to be like top players we would expect would be playing with alpha and beta cards. And now you just have more options and more building blocks for your team by having the Untamed. And so the highest ranked players will be the ones that have, basically all the beta and all the Untamed, and can use whatever combination makes sense to them at the time based on the rule set.
So you've got cards coming with the Untamed, but do you have any of these other new things? You don't have to specify which ones they are if you don't want to, but do you have those other new things like spells or land or any of the type of things?
We have a lot of that worked out, but it's not all implemented yet. And like that stuff isn't going to come. It like takes a lot of development to get the card series done. And then it also takes a lot of development to go get like the tournament system, so that it's, you're a giant fan of the asynchronous tournaments. So that's kind of a bigger project than we initially scoped. So all of that is kind of like is happening now, which is giving me a bunch of time to really try to get the mining and crafting setup done. Parts of it are done. So I guess the short answer is the items and spells are not getting released in Untamed. Untamed is more like a beta edition, but it's like new characters of a beta. It's similar that way. But after the mobile app is done, after the tournaments are done, after we're done with this Kickstarter and the beta's finally out, then I think the full attention goes to the land expansion and really getting items and spells worked out. That is my current understanding. I don't know. It's probably Q1 of 2020 that this thing rolls out, but we'll see.
So one thing I didn't quite understand is how does the asynchronous tournament tie in with P versus E boss battles?
So the part of what's fun about a guild is that like you can have players from all over the world. And so when I play World of Warcraft, we all have to be there because we all have to fight the boss, and we all have to be there Tuesday night at 8 p.m. But for like an international guild, that's not really a possibility. So presumably we could do it in other ways, but at least as it's envisioned now, the goal is to go have a boss fight is basically going to be comprised of somewhere between 15 and 30 different fights that your guild has to put together, each person submitting one team. And the fighting doesn't always have to be fighting. I mean, like some of what I'm describing is, you have to craft stuff. So maybe in this short period of time, you're going to have crafters, farmers, gatherers, builders, and like they'll have different parts of, like you're going to go storm a castle. Well, you better go complete your catapult in time if you want your front tank to not suffer damage ahead of the fight or something. So like, it doesn't all have to be just the standard normal fight that we've been doing for the past year and a half. Like, I'd like to see different types of battles of like, could we figure out how to get a race in here? Your characters have to race against another team. What would a race look like? So now we're emphasizing speed more than something like, the attack and damage, just flying count into this. Like, yeah, it doesn't have to just be that same, melee ranged magic damage fight and that's it. Part of what I want to do is develop different types of fights for these kind of boss encounters.
That'll be interesting. And I can kind of see how like things like reverse speed or earthquake would kind of foreshadow some of those tasks.
Yeah, and then any time that we're going to do stuff, we're going to try to add in a bunch of randomization so that you can't just spam the same team over and over. Like, right. And whether that's us changing what characters we throw at the players, or whether that's the rules shifting, some combination of both. Where some teams aren't allowed and some monsters don't appear. I mean, we'll try to make this tricky for you guys. That's the fun.
Yeah, fun is good.
Talking about mobile. So mobile isn't necessarily about like card investments and all that stuff, but it does impact a lot of promotion, marketing, right? Because now you have your product in the store where millions of people go. How do you think mobile is going to impact all that, and how are you going to handle that? Because blockchain is still challenging and difficult for people, and they don't understand it, and they're like, "Why all this?"
Matt's been working on a free-to-play version that I think will roll out with the mobile device. It's possible we'll roll it out earlier, but we can track people that come to the website that aren't logged in, and then seem to say, "I'm not spending $10 to try that," and it's a chunk, it's a number. It's not like we can dismiss that entirely. So I think having the mobile app, which I think introduces a lot more players, and then free to play, which turns away a lot fewer players because then they can just try this thing for free. I think you're right. We're going to get a lot more people, and that's one of the reasons why, other development has been slower, because all the focus of this whole company. If you're not on the mobile team, then you're free to do other stuff. But if you're on the mobile team, then you are doing mobile. So one example is Nate. Nate's our designer. There's all kinds of little things I would love for Nate to do, but I'm not going to bug Nate with anything other than mobile. Once mobile's released, okay, then we can start looking around and figuring out what other things can we design, like tutorial systems or videos or whatever else. There's lots of stuff we'd like to add, but nothing is higher priority right now than the mobile app.
And personally, as a player and a Steam monster as well, I think that is the right decision. So
good. Yeah, I do too. I mean, I got a lot of cards like you do, and I want my thesis for blockchain in general is people are the value. So if you want this thing to be worth more money, you have to get more eyeballs into it. You have to get more players into it. And being desktop only, the desktop app is great, but desktop only is kind of a deterrent. And especially because these battles are only 3 minutes long, the people that can do this a lot are going to be people commuting, and they're going to be on a train in the morning. So, I really want to see it so that when I take the Amtrak to go visit Philly, that I look around and I can see people playing on the mobile app, but I just don't really see them getting out a desktop just to be able to go play, or a laptop just to play in transit. That's not going to happen. But I think it really opens up a whole new group of people to this, and that gets them onto the Steam blockchain too. The account that they have with Splinterlands is the same account they'll use for DTube and Steemit and Peak Monsters and Steam Peak. It's all one account. So as we sign up these folks, I think that'll be a big draw for the blockchain as a whole.
Yeah, I was regaling Jarvie in our previous segment about how I really do think that Splinterlands is probably going to save Steam. Just,
well,
I don't want to put any pressure on you, but
if you want to onboard the masses, it's going to be gaming. It just has to be. Like, we were at an investor summit, and like the investors were talking about, here's some cool accounting program and how we can use blockchain for real-time accounting analysis. And there was another product that was all about, here's trading and how you can speculate. And like, that's not, like, those are cool high-level financial products, but that is not the mass market. There might be tons of money there, don't get me wrong, but you're not going to onboard the masses through like some neat accounting gizmo. It's going to be gaming. Maybe there's other social media perks to this too. I could believe social media could onboard the masses, but like Counter-Strike Go, like, is going to make more money than the Avengers movie, right? Like, gaming is where the money is at. That's where the people are at. They're building an esports arena here in Philly. I mean, like, this thing is happening. This is growing, and I think that we are trading card games and blockchain are basically a perfect fit. We're in a good spot. We got to just ride out this bear market, and we're doing it. I mean, like, you look at our numbers, we just had the most games played ever. Like, even the spammy first version, we just beat those numbers. We have a lot of players. Like, just have a lot that's all going, and it's all going during like literally the worst market. This is like the Great Depression for blockchain altcoins, and we're still killing it. I mean, that to me is not financial advice, but damn, I'm bullish on this game.
Well, I mean, and for onboarding and getting people accounts, this is like the perfect time to do it because Steam is so low. So you have the 3 Steam that you need and the extra Steam you need to give them, some delegate to them. I mean, that's super cheap these days.
That's what Matt likes to talk about. Like, it's 45 cents to onboard a player. And like, if you look at the number of players versus what they spend, like 45 cents is an easy yes. We're gonna do that day in, day out, every single time we can take that bet. We are going to take that bet. So yeah, we agree. Like, I think we're going to try to get some. I've looked at a whole bunch of these places to try to get marketing out. I think we're going to give some traditional social media a shot and do that a little bit more heavily than what we've been doing. In part because once the mobile's out, we want to hit it a little harder. So let's do some now to alpha beta test, see what's working, and maybe not spend a ton, but in advance of mobile, let's try to get some data so that when that's ready, we can really push hard.
Yeah. I keep coming back to the idea that, so we've got somewhere in the neighborhood of 1,500 to 3,000 players that are actively playing.
It can actually be higher than that.
Well, I'm talking individuals, not just accounts.
Yeah, the highest number that I've seen so far is somewhere between 3,300 and 3,500. And that's when you're including the accounts transacting along with those playing. And I'll count those guys too. I mean, like, accounts transacting, there's money and real people there too. Yeah. So you can up it's a 10% bump to your numbers. It's enough at all.
All right. But in terms of blockchain and blockchain gaming, that's a phenomenal result. But in terms of mobile app gaming, it's a very tiny number. So
another reason to be super bullish on this stuff. Right.
So I keep thinking it's like, okay, so they release the app and let's say we get 20,000 signups, which is not a huge number, but it's 10 times or 8 times or whatever the number is. It's a it's a significant multiple over the entire current user base.
Yeah.
And some of those will be free to play, and some will convert.
To Everdeal. You're gonna be stoked.
But that seems super achievable to me. We'll have some new hotness. So a little bit of buzz, hopefully, with check out this new blockchain gaming thing. It doesn't cost you an arm and a leg unless you wanted to, like me.
Yeah.
But you can get started, for free or very little, and there's still going to be the sponsored accounts like we have through the Herons Unlimited program, where people can come in and start playing real level teams and for free, and all that. So I think it's a very achievable goal to multiply the player base.
Yeah,
many times.
10x in a year. I mean, I think that's our goal. I mean, getting to 20,000 players shouldn't actually be all that difficult.
Yeah,
and if
I just think what the prices of like the alphas and the betas would have to do in order to accommodate that number of players.
Absolutely absurd.
Yeah.
I think some of that's going to be curtailed by, there's only a set amount of money that we will award in tournaments. So that I think has a big portion of driving prices. And my hope is to have that go up during this Kickstarter campaign. So if the campaign goes really well, I'd like to see an increase year over year of how much we're awarding in every single 2-week period. But we'll see. I mean, that is still yet to be determined. But if the players kind of come through on this, then I could see that value going up, which I think would support the value of all the alphas and the betas and the untamed even higher. I mean, I think it gets into a virtuous cycle.
Yeah, and if you do play anytime tournaments, then and you can support tournaments that could have not just dozens or hundreds of people, but thousands of people playing, then that's a more lucrative area for someone to promote.
Yeah, and I mean,
just to 100 people, I'm not willing to spend as much as if I'm promoting to, like you guys are saying, 5,000, 6,000, 7,000 people.
I mean, imagine BJI too. He's killing it right now in tournaments. Imagine he can start playing in these 1,000-person tournaments. The prize pools there would go way up. I mean, that gets pretty attractive. And hopefully, I think that bumps up the numbers too, right? We'll be able to say much sooner than later to say, look, we've given out $100,000 in tournament prizes now. And I think that will serve as advertising. That's the best kind of advertising that I think we're going to get of players saying, oh crap, look at how much has been awarded here, and sort of spreading that message. So we'll see. I mean, again, we have so much green field, so much development we can do. We have a really talented team. I'm bullish. I'm just happy to pour my days into this.
Yeah.
So one of the questions was a little bit back to Untamed on what did he ask? Summoners getting different types of abilities. I know that when we were doing the legendary summoners and deciding things, we had a bunch of different random ideas, but it kind of went back to plus magic, health, defense. That was kind of the different things. Are you guys looking towards staying with that plus magic defense, just playing with those things?
Some of that's going to be some timing. I mean, that all takes development work. Having a summoner that has the ability to resurrect a monster like that, it's not as simple as just copy paste code out of Angel of Light. It takes a lot more development. So how crazy we get with new monster and new summoner ability design is going to be pretty heavily impacted by how far along is the mobile by the time that we roll out. And it just, that stuff takes time. If we have time, we'd like to invest it, but we'll see.
Are you sharing what all the cards do at the time of the Kickstarter, or you no. Are you sharing what they look like?
We'll have a number of examples of fully done up cards. I think I have 4 or 5 of them. Maybe there'll be more in the next week or two, but No, we're not going to be like, here's all the stats, here's all the abilities. We'll show some of the cards and where we're going, but it won't be complete.
And a new player could completely play with just the unchanged.
Yeah. And we need that, right? Like,
yes,
this is unsustainable if we're like, oh, you have to own alphas and betas, of which there's no way enough people will ever have them. I mean, I think people that have alpha and beta will have an advantage, but only because they'll have more building blocks for a team. Not because those cards are going to be infinitely more powerful or something. It's going to be like, hey, I really need this thing that has healing and void, but I don't have that in my set. But it was in the beta, so now I better go get that card. It's going to be like you want that certain Lego piece to go build your structure or whatever.
Yeah, and for the new players, there's still the rental market, which is still vastly underpriced, in my opinion, as far as what it's worth. So if they're missing one of those individual cards, they can go just rent it, and the more players there are, the more attractive the rental market will be to suppliers. So I think we'll see a lot more there.
Yeah, all this stuff, I think it's all virtuous cycles. You get more players, they need more cards, which drives prices up, which means that more investors come in, which gives us more development, which gives us new access, which brings in new players, gets us marketing, gets us new players drive prices. Like it's very self-fulfilling prophecy isn't the right term, but it's like an upward cycle kind of thing.
Well, and at this point in the development of the Steam Monsters or Splinterlands ecosystem, I don't want to say every other day, but frequently there are discussions about in the Discord about either players or teams of players sandbagging each other to up their rankings. And you said in the past that more players is the answer, because
absolutely
the more transactions there are, the less chance you have of meeting up with your teammate and
I think perception of that remains pretty high. I think actual occurrence has gone down of just how much of the internal gaming has happened. That it's a blockchain, so you guys can go pull stats on that. But my guess is that if you start looking over the last couple of months of the actual occurrence of that, it should be going down. We've made some thoughtful decisions to reduce that kind of thing. I don't think we're ever going to be able to completely squash it, but certainly having more players and more competition over the same scarce resources is going to go a long way to keeping, at times there's nobody playing, so you just go on and you fight yourself, and you get 10,000 champion points in very little work. Okay, well, if there's people playing at that time, it's a lot harder to do that.
Right.
I mean, even just 10xing might be enough to be able to get rid of a lot of it. And even reducing that problem another 50 to 90% or something.
Yeah, I think so. So I did want to get a little bit technical on you. So if you are faint of heart with coding and blockchain and stuff, be warned.
Oh goodness.
So
guys, I'm gonna give also maybe a 5-minute warning.
Okay.
I got a doctor's appointment. I'm gonna go head off to.
All right, sounds good. So my big interest is on the Steam Engine side, which is also one of your babies. You've mentioned that NFTs are going to be coming soon-ish. Whatever.
Yeah, my developer bailed, so
yeah.
he had some sort of life crisis. So I'm back to hunting for a dev. But it's a little bit further out, but my 2 highest priorities right now on Steam Engine are getting opt-in KYC up so I can do money transmitter and accepting fiat, and my other highest one is NFTs. And
Okay.
I have a meeting with some devs on Friday about that to see if I can find a different team to help me.
Okay. So for those who don't know, NFT is non-fungible token. So like one Steam is as good as any other, but with an NFT, you're going to look at each individual token as its own unique thing, but it'll be classified under some sort of organizational umbrella.
Yeah, I like the question, which one? So if you have to ask which one, it's an NFT. So like, I'm going to send you a Bitcoin. You don't ask which one. That's because they're all fungible.
Right.
But if I say I'm going to send you a Splinterlands card, you're going to say which one, and then which level, and like, how many BCX will it have, and who owned it before me, and like, there'll just be a lot more questions because you have to ask which one.
Right. So my question for you is, how do you see Splinterlands and NFT trading abilities on Steam Engine interacting with each other?
I think it's going to be like any other exchange, but now it's going to be an NFT exchange. So like, okay, so you go and you post on steamit.com, or because Jarvis here, you post on steamgeek.com, and you make some Steam, and then you want to sell that Steam. What do you do with it? Well, you got to go find somebody that's willing to give you something else for it. So you go to an exchange and you put it on the exchange and you get the thing that you're looking for. And I think the NFTs are going to have to work the same way. So you have, like right now, you push a button and you say, send my cards to the Splinterlands exchange. And for the thing that's just purely Splinterlands, you go and you post your transactions there. And maybe we hijack that, or maybe we have a separate area, but you would click on a button and now you would say something like, send it to the Steam Engine exchange. And so now you post, because like, let's say the Colony game, like they want battleships to be NFTs, and Drug Wars comes out and like Big Mama's an NFT, and all these other places get NFTs. Like the Splinterlands market probably isn't the right spot for all of that, right? Because they're not Splinterlands cards. Right. So we'll have like an NFT exchange, kind of like OpenSea, where you would send your tokens to the exchange, and presumably if Steam Engine continues to be able to interact with more chains, you might even see, all right, I'm going to take my Ethereum ERC 721s and send a pegged version of it to the Steam Engine exchange. And maybe if Tron ever gets NFTs, they'll send it there. And we'll have ours. And like, the vision for that is to go have as many different trading pairs as possible. There's no reason why we can't do it for NFTs. Once we figure out how to interact with a chain, it's not really that much different to go say like, send it 5 Ethereum as it is, send it 5 of these ERC20s as it is, send it 5 of these ERC 721s. You just got to build the spot for them to sit so that they look reasonable, that they look natural, not like trying to, just has to be visually usable.
Yeah. So, I mean, with that said, I foresee a time, maybe at the end of next year or so, that in addition to players and guilds and everything, we'll start to see merchants who are then selling crafting items and mining resources, and all those kind of things. It's a whole other business model on top of the actual game.
I mean, not everybody. So this gets back to, not everybody wants to play that simple card game, but like people like Clash of Clans and Clash Royale and building little empires, and like, you might never once fight, but you could go own your mines and maintain your entire economic dominance and corner the market on, like, I don't know, you want it to be like, you're going to be the marble guy, and you're going to corner the market on crafted marble, or like mined marble. And that's going to be your thing. And okay, like, you don't have to fight, but the people are going to need that marble to go build the various guild halls and like the buildings that are there, from the gym to the thing that will get you more magic power or ranged attack. As you want those things to grow, they'll keep taking more and harder to find resources. So, some of that you'll craft, some of that you'll farm, some of that will be from fighting. But people have to have the components somewhere to go build all this. So if my vision kind of is going to come to life, it'll be, the mine produces some stuff, and you have to farm some stuff, and you have to go kill monsters. Maybe you have to do a couple boss drops that are necessary. Now you can build this special forge, you go out, get more resources, different types of, you got to get the scabbard, and maybe you want some jewels that are part of it. So then you can build the sword, which then allows you to actually finally have enough power to beat the boss. And then you kind of have to repeat that to go up to the next level where, now it requires more of these finite resources, and they're harder to get and fewer people can get them. And scarcity just drives economics, so that, you sitting on a handful of high-level mines might be enough to just get the income that you're looking for.
Well, that sounds pretty exciting to me.
I mean, if it's anything like renting has done, then it's going to be extraordinary.
Yeah.
Like, I can't.
I'm a fan.
My deck isn't even fully rented, and I make more than the credit card companies do renting to, like, lending me money. Actually, what I really ought to do is just lend money from the credit card companies to go buy cards to rent out to players, because I make more money than I do.
Well, so the flaw in that thing is convertibility back to fiat to pay your credit card bill. It can be done, but it's
well, that's why one of my highest priority things for Steam Engine is to go back and forth with fiat. And I'm at a spot where I could go do it legally. There's a number of states where I can operate now, but I don't have like a functioning KYC system up, and that's something that I'm pushing my dev to get done, or devs.
Yeah. I would be very excited for that.
It would solve a lot of problems.
It would.
All right, gents. Hopefully that was helpful. I got to go run to the dock, but I'm glad that you guys are talking about it. I'm glad you guys are excited. Thanks for owning a lot of cards. Thanks for building a lot of systems and supporting this game. And hopefully this thing moons, and all of us are in phenomenal positions to take advantage of it.
That'd be great. All right. Well, thanks a lot, Aggroed.
Yeah. My pleasure. You guys take care. I'll see you in a bit.
All right.
Bye.
All right. So, Jarvie, any closing thoughts there on Aggroed's talk?
No, I am most excited about this new users thing, and the thing. Yeah, I used to think, no, we need the play anytime tournaments. That's the biggest thing, because we need this opportunity for people to come in and play on their time schedule when they want to on these tournament type things. But the mobile, I think, is now, I'm excited that they're putting a lot more emphasis on that. So I see a lot more of the big picture with how that's going to benefit people.
Yeah, I think it'll be huge. After he started talking about airdrops, though, I got kind of excited about untamed packs. So I might have to rethink some plans about what I'm going to do going forward for whenever that Kickstarter comes out. But,
yeah, it's.
I was thinking about buying a bunch of beta, to sit on and play the token speculation game, but now maybe not.
I mean, I do feel frustrated sometimes about feeling like I need to spend more money on something that I've already spent a lot of money on.
That is true, but it's only if you want more.
But having the discussion like we did in our last show about all the different ways that's financially been beneficial to us in the past, and that could continue to be beneficial, and having this discussion we just had now about why that could get better and better, okay, that's cool. That's not the worst thing, but the pressure also of feeling that way is, so it's kind of balances itself out, I guess. We know I'm still going to buy it. You're still going to buy this stuff.
Yeah, I am. So there's at least 2 people who are going to be on the Kickstarter at some level.
Yeah, let's hope there's a bunch of new people too. So
yeah.
If that starts.
So get to the front page of Kickstarter, and I've actually never used Kickstarter except for Steam Monsters. So
yeah,
I don't really know.
I ran one. It's a pain in the butt.
Okay.
Raised years ago, raised 70,000 on a project. So it's not fun.
Okay.
And the
All right.
marketing aspect isn't the fun spot.
Yeah. But I think Splinterlands is. I mean, that kind of stuff that Aggroed was sharing was pretty exciting. We got the new cards coming out. Someday we'll have land expansion and mining and crafting and all that kind of stuff. And I personally, I really like all the crafting kind of stuff, so I'm very excited for that. But he said Q1 2020, so I'm going to say Q3, just to
manage expectations.
manage expectations.
Yeah.
So
I think that everyone watching needs to understand that this is kind of like, this is where he's hoping it's going, but development, actual code, actual time restraints, how the economics today will impact tomorrow, all that stuff is going to play in there.
Yep.
And that's what's actually going to determine what actually ends up happening. You have desires of where that goes, and those are just a part.
Yep. All right. Well, that sounds good. I think we're at a good place to wrap this up. And we'll post this on the Peak, what do we call it? Peak Podcast?
Peak Podcast.
Peak Podcast.
Peakcast.
Okay. All right. So, Peakcast now. Peak Podcast. So we'll get this up. We'll notify everybody in the Discord and make posts on Steam and all that jazz. And
all that jazz.
We'll tune in next time.
Okay. Thanks, everyone. Have a good day.